Hi everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of our series. In this episode, we'll be discussing future-proofing your commercial property business with live data. I'm Emma, and I'm the Digital Solutions Manager here at Raffingers. Our aim within this department is to ensure that all of our clients are streamlining their business as much as possible. Joining me in this episode is Grace Thomson, and I'll now hand over to Grace, who will give a little introduction about herself, what she does, and who Re-Leased are.
Yeah, thanks so much, Emma. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Grace. I look after all of our partnerships here at Re-Leased, which means I work with our fantastic accounting partners, just like Raffingers. So what I do is help them to become property technology experts for their valued clients and anyone else who wants to work with Raffingers. I've been with Re-Leased for just over 3 years, and it's been incredible to see the acceleration in the adoption of technology within the property sector in that time. I've seen a huge upheaval, obviously, with what we've gone through in the last few years, and it's been really exciting to be on that ride. So just a bit about Re-Leased. So Re-Leased is a cloud-based property management system. We specialise in commercial and mixed portfolios, and we're a solution for both landlords and managing agents. So a key thing about our platform is that it integrates seamlessly with Xero and QBO. And what that enables is portfolio information and financial information to be centralised and accessible from one screen. Overall, it's sort of a platform focused around automating the really manual and time-consuming tasks and then giving access to all that key data.
Amazing. So Grace, I'm sure within what you're doing and within Re-Leased, you probably see the pitfalls of property businesses every day, the sort of data and the transition that they come from. So in episode 1 of this series, I touched base on spreadsheets and basically making that transition from manual books to the cloud. But besides spreadsheets, obviously, you've got your manual invoices, you've got the manual expenses, you've got the piece of paper in your pocket where you're literally jotting down who needs to be paid next week and the dates of when, I don't know, the repairer is visiting the flat, for example. But then we also have the clients who have made that leap to a cloud accounting software such as Xero, but haven't gone that extra mile just yet to have something like Re-Leased alongside Xero to manage the property side. So obviously, when you're approached by property businesses or accountants on behalf of their clients, what is it that is like the most, I don't know, the most common software or the most common thing that they're transitioning from over to Re-Leased?
Yeah, great question. So as you mentioned, a spreadsheet. So a Re-Leased client varies from a portfolio that has maybe like 15 to 20 tenancies all the way up into the thousands. So it's a really scalable solution, and it's really striking that we see the prevalence of spreadsheets right across that industry. But the other sort of common thing we see is a mix of what I would describe as siloed systems. So a lot of particularly the commercial businesses, are using sort of like a legacy desktop-based management tool. It's probably not quite fit for purpose, doesn't integrate with any live accounting. So they're having to do their accounting either manually outside of that, or they're using a different tool for that. And then they'll be using, there's a high degree of sort of paper filing still, or they might be using something like a Google Drive, but again, that doesn't link in and centralize with anything. So there's normally kind of a combination of different systems that don't really work together and are creating these data silos in the business. And that's what we most commonly see. And then a small portion of our clients that come to us, as I mentioned, and you mentioned, we're a specialist solution for commercial and mixed portfolios. So what we see is commercial portfolios, or just portfolios that have some commercial units, and they're leveraging a residential system that isn't quite fit for purpose for them. So they're not getting all the functionality that they need. But I would say headliners are spreadsheets and those like disparate siloed tools where everything's just a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, so we work with a lot of commercial and residential property clients, and we see every day that we have some that are on Xero and using that accounting software to manage their books and records and their financials. But then we also still have the businesses who are using the manual books and, the paper receipts stored in a folder under their desk, for example. So whenever I talk to them and I ask them, why haven't you yet moved to the cloud? The answer is always the same, and it's because they're so used to the format that they're in and what they use. They're just afraid to obviously make that leap and then change the whole system. So I know obviously Re-Leased, they support the transition, but what would you say is the most important thing? Because obviously I always try to reassure every single client that you know, moving to the cloud is the most important thing, especially the way the world is going at the moment. And, you know, everything is accessible via the cloud. You have information to live data your business at all times. But from your point of view, has a client or a business ever approached you and just been afraid to make that transition to something like Re-Leased from what they're currently using?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. So I think the fear comes from 2 points. So there's sort of a lack of know-how about how to adopt technology, right? There's like if I went into Google and typed in or a property system, it'd be overwhelming, the results that come back. How do you sift through all the noise and figure out what's right for you and your business? And I think that's where working with someone like Raffingers, you have the dedicated team to really scope what these clients need. That's where that really helps and fits in. And then also, you know, we are what's called a SaaS platform, right? So we're software as a service. And what we're really invested in is having lifelong customers. So we don't work with businesses that aren't a good fit for us. And I think that's pretty common across the industry. The success of our businesses are predicated upon having like long-term customers who are really, really happy. So we always make sure that it's the right fit from our side as well, because we don't want to waste anyone's time implementing a system that isn't right. So I think leveraging expertise both within the software providers, but then also with external advisors is key. And then I think the second point is really understanding from the get-go that it's not just about changing systems. It's really a personnel and like change management piece internally. So yes, you can get an amazing system, but it's only going to be as good as the people that are using it. And it's only going to be as good as how much it is adopted. So working from the beginning to have like a clear leader, having a clear plan of what they want to achieve, and working like collaboratively again with someone like you, Emma, someone from Raffingers that can help them go through that process, communicate to the other members of the team why they're making these changes, and then encourage software adoption. That's what really changes things, but I think that's also what prohibits people from making those leaps. But it's so worth it. And then what we sometimes see is that people don't even know that there are solutions out there. They might be spending 2-3 days a month just literally like manually sending out one particular type of invoice, let's say like a rent invoice. They don't know that can actually be automated. Yeah. And it's not their fault. That's because they're not looking for software. They haven't gone out and done the research yet. But there are people out there that are doing the research for them and that can inform them. And there's also obviously teams like Re-Leased that are happy to help them to make that discovery.
Well, that's why I always say, just following on from that, that's why I always say that it's not about just moving to the cloud. It's about what this particular business is missing out on. Because like I said, like most people or most businesses don't even know that these automated software such as Re-Leased can really help with the property management side. Obviously sync with their accounting software such as Xero, which we specialize in here at Raffingers, and just automate their whole system. So they're basically missing out on spending extra time on the core points of their business. And less time basically on the manual work. So if everything's automated for them, invoices are raised automatically, calendar dates are automatically added in, emails are sent out to their subcontractors, for example. Everything is done for them. So what is there for them to then do other than obviously monitor that system and just focus on the important parts of the business and just make it grow, really?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the main reasons people come to us, is that they just want to say that they want to get out of the weeds. I don't know if you're going to be sharing resources with this, but we can share a whole bunch of like more in-depth case studies. But there's actually a quote from one of our clients I think is pretty compelling, where they basically said that Re-Leased helped them to remove chaos and add structure and order, which I think summarizes it in such a nice way, because all it's really doing is like giving them visibility over all of their tasks, upcoming events, centralizing all of those invoices, and just kind of restoring that order so that they have that blanket centralized single source of truth. And then they can take that data and say, okay, where do we need to take action? Where do we need to be more proactive? Where can we save money? And that's when they can really start focusing on growing their business, but also spending more time and growing those relationships with their tenants.
Let's go into more detail about why. So from my point of view, I think that one of the main reasons really, and I think I've already briefly said this, to move to a cloud accounting system or a property software such as Re-Leased is basically to have that ability to view your live data, to know at all times what your business is, what it's doing, where it is, and to basically spend more time on the core elements and less time doing the manual work. I think, like I said, the way the world is going at the moment with the transition to digital and the new up and coming releases with tech every single day, I think there is no other option but to move to a cloud system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big game changer for our clients is operational reporting. So obviously we integrate with Xero, we also integrate with QuickBooks Online. And what that's going to do is it's going to flow live data in real time into those accounting platforms, which is going to enrich that financial data. And of course, you know, if you're working proactively with an accountant like Referengers, or if you're just looking to do some financial reporting in-house, that's going to mean that data is better, which is fantastic. But something that maybe we don't speak about quite as much is how having a centralized source of truth for all the portfolio information means that actually they have the ability, because of the functionality within Re-Leased, to do real-time operational reporting. Yes. So there are, I don't actually know how many there are off the top of my head, but there are a whole host of operational reports they can run within the system. And what that means is they can have a look at, okay, all the events coming up across the portfolio for the next month. How do we plan our team? How do we structure our time? We can look at vacancy across the portfolio. And that really has become more and more important, because obviously with what we've all lived through, especially in the commercial space, the commercial real estate landscape has changed. We see retail assets being repurposed more towards e-commerce. We there is some booming high streets and a real decline in high streets in other areas. Offices have changed. You know, there's a huge move towards more flexible working options. You know, landlords who own office assets are thinking proactively about, you know, do they move to a more serviced office? Is the 10-year lease gone? You know, what do people want going forward? And so for that reason, it's more important than ever for these businesses to have a really clear insight into their bottom line. And if they're not leveraging an integrated tool, it's impossible for them to have actual access to that data. And it's not just looking at the numbers, as I said, you know, it's looking at the operational side and saying, okay, well, this is what the numbers are saying. This is what we actually have capacity to do within our team. This is what we have coming up, our particular commitments within our business. You know, how can we strategically plan to reach our goals, using this data is sort of where they need to be at now.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. So like you said, obviously, as well as external, it helps plan internally. So you know where your business is going, whether you can have that Christmas party this year, for example, what your business can do for the next year and what's going to be left at the end of the year. I think especially in times like this, every single business can benefit from having a system which provides them with those reporting functions and that live data, so they can just keep on top of it and know exactly where they are at all times.
The other thing I'd probably add to that as well is obviously our working patterns have changed. A lot of what we see is businesses coming to us and they're essentially desk bound. You know, when we all had to go into the lockdown, some of them, you know, they couldn't get access to their offices, or they had to, you know, set up a rota if people would go in and pick up certain things. And now with, you know, a younger workforce coming through, people want to be able to do things off their phone. You know, the people that use Re-Leased, the property managers and the landlords, can be going to visit a tenant. They can access the latest version of the lease from their phone. They can see if that tenant is in arrears, and they can see the recent comms with that tenant, and they have all of that to hand, which just elevates their service when you're looking at tenant retention, but also from an employee perspective, it helps them to just do their job more efficiently and also maybe enjoy it a bit more, for not having to, you know, download things before they leave the office, head out there. You know, it's just how you should be working really in 2022.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the same with Xero. I mean, obviously, bookkeepers who do the bookkeeping on Xero, I'm sure once they're on the cloud and updating the books for a specific company, obviously they're not then going to want to go back to doing the manual way and, you know, updating the spreadsheets, photocopying the receipts, etc. So like you said, where obviously Re-Leased is accessible via the mobile, that the reason it integrates with Xero so nicely is because they're both so developed, so on the cloud. Xero also has the mobile app, so literally on the go to speak to each other, and you can literally log into either or from your mobile, and like you said, just enjoy the way that work is and how you're working.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if you're inclined that way, you can go away and you can manage your property portfolio from Spain if you need to. That's pretty nice.
One of the main questions I'm always asked, and one of the main fear points when I am talking to clients, are how secure is this system that I'm going to be using? Because I know obviously when it's on the cloud, there is that fear, because it's not just, you know, a software on your desktop. It's accessible via a website which literally anyone can visit. But I have always reassured our clients that these softwares that we are partnered with are 100% secure. We would never partner with a software otherwise if we knew that there was a risk that their data could potentially be breached. So what would you say to those clients from your point of view and your experience? How have you always tried to reassure them that Re-Leased is 100% secure? There is no way that anything can happen to your data, and just to basically put their trust in yourselves, but also us, now that we are you know, partnered together?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first point really is there's a lot of rhetoric and noise, and it seems like every month there's like a big news article about like a data breach or something. But I think the reality is cloud systems are by nature actually more secure than probably what they're using right now, rather than a desktop solution or a server solution. You know, if something happens to either of those physical units, like that poses a risk to their data. All cloud storage is basically stored on like multiple different servers, so actually it's from a like backing up perspective, it's actually like more secure. We're hosted on Microsoft Azure, so our platform comes with kind of all the bells, whistles, and security of that like advanced global platform. And then there's also things that we take from our side, initiatives that we take, for example, two-factor authentication. So, you know, it's impossible basically for you to log into a Re-Leased account, you know, from an external device without that two-factor authentication. And then we also have, you know, even within the system, you know, we have lots of different user types that you can build out themselves. You know, they can even put controls into what different user types can see. So it might be that they want to have full access and they want their colleague to have 70% access to the platform. You know, there are controls built into the system to control data in that way. And you know, even if they there's even functionality within Re-Leased to sort of archive data. So if they no longer own or let a tenancy, for example, that can be archived and that data doesn't disappear. It actually still sits within the system. So it kind of looks forward as a like a secure piece of it gives them security basically down the line for their data.
What we always recommend is when a client is a little bit cautious to move to a cloud software, we always recommend that, like you said, they set up the two-factor authentication. So literally no one can ever log in other than themselves, and to change their password every 6 months, because I think there's nothing securer than changing your password every 6 months to something only you would know. And then just get in that cycle of just, you know, continue to update that. And then again, like I said, the data is 100% secure within the cloud. But the good thing is the fact that your information is on the cloud and you are using a cloud software, it's always improving. So there's always updates, there's always new releases. They're just trying to keep up to date with how the world is changing and what they think businesses can benefit from. So as soon as a business moves to a cloud system, and I always say this, they will instantly see a massive improvement. And I've had clients turn around before and say, wow, I can't believe it has taken me this long to move from my manual books to a cloud system. Like, I can't believe what I've been missing, because it's just, they're just amazed at what and how far these systems have come, because I know obviously they've been around for quite a while now, and some people have looked into it when they first started and it might not have been as great as expected, but now that times have changed and, you know, these softwares are changing with, you know, the world and how the years go by, it has improved massively. So I don't know if you've, you know, had the same reaction from businesses you've worked with and people you've been approached by, but yeah, I've had great feedback from when they've moved from manual to a cloud system.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get that feedback all the time, you know, wish we'd done this earlier, but actually where we see most of those kind of shock and those joyful reactions is actually when we're demonstrating the product. So you know, we'll go through a bunch of the functionality and then we'll hit upon one thing that they had no idea could be automated, or they had no idea could be cut from 10 hours in their week down to 1. And that's when they go, oh my goodness, okay, yeah, this is exactly what we need. The thing that springs to mind is like arrears chasing tenants that haven't paid their rent yet. That's something that we can automate within the system, and for them at the moment it would be really, really time consuming, and I think they just believe that that's what it would have to be forever. So yeah, absolutely, that reaction is pretty common.
One of the big things that people also don't realize is that Xero is not just a standalone product, and for the businesses who are using Xero, they don't realize how many integrations there are with other platforms out there. So for example, such as Re-Leased, there's probably so many businesses who are watching this right now who are using Xero but don't have that property management software such as Re-Leased, because they don't realize that it does sync nicely with one another and basically automates their whole system. So like you said, obviously when you are giving that presentation or that demo to a business who are interested in using the system, they then start to realize that, oh wow, it integrates with my accounting system, I'm already on Xero. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, for people who think, oh, I've got this complex thing on my business, or this is a bit weird, actually that's where it's kind of probably fun for people like you, Emma, because things like Xero and QuickBooks Online that allow all these different integrations, actually opens up this world of opportunity where you can create what we would call a tech stack. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, that's like basically a assembly of different integrated tools basically that help a business to run. And I know that probably Emma would find it super fun to find the right tech stack for a more complex business. Because what you can do is you can use the accounting software as a sort of single point, integrate out to the property management side, and then you could use a different tool that will also integrate into the accounting tool to cover whatever other niche area of your business that you need to cater to.
Yeah, so we now have our app stack. We've built it. So what we've done is we've put together the best apps which would work very well for a property business. Obviously, number one would be Xero, number two Re-Leased. We think the two just integrate absolutely great with one another, and I think there's no point having an accounting system if you're not then going to go the full length and have that property management side for that side of your business, and just make sure that it is being automated and managed with a software such as Re-Leased.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk a bit more about how to make that leap and how we can basically assist for the businesses who are watching right now. So obviously I want to reassure everyone that we will always be on hand to support. So if you are watching right now and think, I would love to move to Xero, and I would also love to, you know, transfer my property management side to Re-Leased, those are definitely the things that myself and Grace can help with. So from my point of view, when you do approach us at Raffingers, I will always be on hand to help. Like I've said, I will make sure that you've got the best app stack for your business, recommend the best route to go down, and you know how to basically make that transition from what you're using at the moment to the cloud. But Grace, I was just wondering if you could give a little bit more information about how Re-Leased work, and then we can just go into how we can both work together to make sure that the clients are receiving the best possible help.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a change. So we want to set everybody up for success. So what we have in-house is a dedicated implementation team. So what they do is they look after all of our clients, and you'll have one dedicated person who takes you through from the moment you agree to join Re-Leased all the way through to going live, and even after that to support you in your first few weeks of using the system. So what that looks like is we help you sort of take all your data, we upload it for you into the system. There's no like manual data entry required for any of our clients. Like, who has the time for that? And then we upload it all into the system, and then we actually train you on the platform, but using your own portfolio data. So you're not just learning on dummy properties, you're actually learning to use the system on the properties and tenants that you actually manage on a day-to-day basis. And that training program, you know, there is a set period of lessons, but if there's something that you feel you need extra time on, you know, our implementation managers are lovely individuals that can help you all the way along. And then you get, we would work to help integrate the system with Raffingers and with Xero. And then you basically move into the phase where you get handed over to our support team, which is 24/7. So we've got like in-person support, we've got email, sort of like quick messaging, everything you could need to just kind of keep that really supported environment around the Re-Leased product.
See, this is why Re-Leased are great, and this is why we're partnered with them, because they're just so helpful. But yeah, just following on from that, like I've said and you've said, we'll always be on hand to obviously assist and help, and just basically give the best advice that we can. So if there's something which we think wouldn't be a fit for a specific business, we would of course be honest and truthful and just say, look, there's no point you using this because it won't work. So it's all around making sure that the business is happy, the owners are happy, the employees are happy with the system they're using, and just obviously being there by their side to make sure that it's all set up, all correct, and all streamlined.
Yeah, perfect.
Amazing. Well, that is everything from me, Grace. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Emma. It was really, really nice to chat to you.
No, thank you, you too. And thank you all for watching. Obviously, episode 3 will be coming up next, so keep an eye out for that.